And we're live. Greetings and salutations, all, says Joseph. I always wondered what sort of dishes the Fremen would eat. Indeed. Hmm. Hello to everybody out there in YouTube land. I hope you can hear me okay. Thanks once again for joining us tonight. My hearing's a bit out on the left hand side, funnily enough, with the old air pressure and the cold. So I hope it doesn't make me sound too funny, folks, but thanks for joining us once again. And tonight's all about the banquet scene, which two for two films, apparently, David Lynch's Dune and Denis Villeneuve's Dune, will not have featured at all. So that's quite interesting. Brad saying the sound is good. Thank you very much, Brad. Cheers. So yeah, as we were having a bit of a natter about this, there's an awful lot in the banquet scene, so much more than I was able to present there in this episode. Um, but it really gives us an awful lot of insight into Arrakis itself, the political groups that are operating on Arrakis, and as we pointed out there, as we pointed out there, it's a lot of the non-Fremen, I suppose, the non-Indigenous people within that we get to see how the Imperium, the different groups within the Imperium, shall we say, outside of the Fremen, even though they're represented by Liet Kynes, we get to see their machinations and their power plays and their intrigues at work, and we also get to see Paul stand up and really sort of operate as the head of his household for the first time, I suppose, in a proper feudal setting, if you like. Caron saying, hearing out, did you get to an early screening? No, it was the sound that impressive, Caron. Interesting. Though I went to see, I was at the premiere of Star Trek Generations in London a long time ago, and I think they just had new sound put in there, and it was quite impressive. But I remember it being almost too much. I think it was first time I kind of heard sound like that. But it's a bit of a thing these days, isn't it? I suppose. But no, alas, no early screenings. Will not be on the even the film's premiere junket, if you like, if you know what I mean. The way the actors and director are going around the world, it's doubtful that they ever people like that ever come to Ireland or Northern Ireland, certainly not. So London kind of occupies all the United Kingdom premieres and sort of does for the rest of us, if you see what I mean. But sadly, no. But still really looking forward to getting to see it. We'll be off to see it Thursday at lunchtime, Karen. So not long to go now, folks. So if you do have any questions at all about the banquet scene, there's a lot of intrigue there. We find out a fair bit about, as I said, that not everybody is what they appear to be, and we get a lot. We get a lot of education on the ecology of Arrakis. Pardon me, and I'd say Frank Herbert's ideas on ecology, which are presented there. And you can see some of the namings of the things like the Tansley effect within Dune and so on. They're nods to real people. And we talk about the law of the minimum there, which is Liebig's law of the minimum. As I said, it's it's one of those ones that's interesting. It's Karl Sprengel who came up with that idea, but it's attributed to Gustav Liebig, as they say. So you think, oh, well, there you go there, Karen. Thank you very much. The episode covers it pretty in depth. I think there's a bit more. There is a bit more in it. Remember this, Karen, that my work has been chopped and chopped and chopped to bits. Sadly, so it is an important scene. I thought it was really important to keep it there and have a look at it. Excuse me, that's my doggies barking. They're just back in from a walk there. But oh, Joseph, there you go. Were you stuck in advertising hell, Joseph? Sorry about that. Whenever I've noticed this, by the way, guys, that whenever we put up these videos, we do it live, and it's the same with my other videos, that because I run them live and I just leave them up for you to look at, and I like to review them straight away. YouTube puts the default set of adverts as an absolute shebang of adverts, tons of them. So I'm only able to go in usually about 24 hours after and take all of those adverts out. And I for something that's about a couple of hours long, I leave just a handful, just a couple, two or three in. You can't really tell what are videos and are non-videos, but it's the same where I actually didn't realize some of my older videos what was going on. So I've actually recently gone back and checked to see that they haven't got, well, actually a few of them had tons of adverts on them. So I've taken them all out and just left one, basically, or If depends on the length of the video. So hopefully that might make for a bit of a better viewing experience on the channel, because I don't like watching things with lots and lots of adverts in them myself, you know. So I do apologize if that's been anybody's experience. It's a pain. It's kind of a default, and yeah. So I backtracked and did a whole pile of them the other day just to make sure they were less advert heavy. Brad saying that's why Australia is getting the movie so late. The cast have to do a 2-week lockdown before they can walk the red carpet. Ah, that's interesting, Brad. Brad, I read an article today on The Guardian that actually, and I thought, oh, they haven't done their research or something has changed, but I'm actually considering contacting the person that wrote the article to see if they want to have a look at my videos in terms of once they're finished what we've done and achieved here. But they actually put in the Guardian newspaper today, I think Brad said that it was coming out on the 21st in the UK and Australia. So it's either they've been misinformed, the date's changed, or they've made a mistake and misprinted it or something, you know. Carol saying the Butlerian jihad will fix that to Joseph. Advertisement hell. What was the film recently? There was a film recently, and I think it was a Terry Gilliam film. And it was, who was it that was in it? And it has the adverts following the guy, just tormenting him along the street. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. It was quite a good film. Joseph Smith says, don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're monetized, but the ads were unskippable and long lols. Sorry about that, Joseph. As I said, you sort of set it up a certain way, and I don't like that either. So it's been a default, and part of it was to do with my own ignorance over the matter. So I prefer an ad before your video starts and one after, and if it's a certain length, throw one in the middle. That's as keep me happy, I suppose. But videos with too many adverts in them are really annoying, and you can't tell really what ones are text and which ones are going to sort of be in a full video, as they say, you know. Obey. Is that one of the words the protagonist says when putting on glasses, or am I thinking of the wrong film, says Carol. Obey. I'm not sure what film you're thinking on. Sees not says. Protagonist sees. Is that one of the words the protagonist sees when putting on glasses? Got you. Here, I'll tell you what, very quickly, I'll figure it out what the film was. I can remember roughly, and it was a Terry Gilliam film, so that will narrow it down. It was a recent one, and let me see. There he is. I'll just go to his. The Zero Theorem. That was the film, and it was Christoph Waltz. The Zero Theorem. That's the film I'm thinking of. If anybody hasn't seen it, check it out. It's I thought it was quite good. Terry Gilliam can be a bit hit and miss for me. I like Terry Gilliam films a lot, but I thought some of us are a bit miss, and I quite enjoyed that. I thought it was a good one. But yeah, there's a bit where he's and the streets, the adverts are following him down the street, and he tries to sort of double take and walk backwards, and the adverts just go after him, and it's just that he can't escape them, you know. And it's a good film. I enjoyed it very much. It's an interesting. I'd say it's a good commentary on modern society. But we're plagued by adverts. But I would argue, by the way, folks, that for someone like myself, the work that you're looking at, sort of, we were discussing this with my wife earlier, but it's what I would call a dead and buried PhD, as in that 10 years ago nobody had any interest in it, and there's no way it's getting published, and there's no way it's getting out to the general public. So YouTube is a platform for me that allowed me to actually do something about it and break out of that trap. And it's a hard one to dig yourself out of. If nobody wants to publish it or get it out there, you can self-publish yourself, or that's it, really. So YouTube's a pretty good, in terms of what I think. I'm hoping this will create like a paradigm shift in how you publish academic work, but especially PhDs, and get the work out there and make it some kind of accessible format. And if the price of that, for me to do that for free, is watching a couple of adverts. Fantastic, you know. When I've put these together, guys, actually, I think we've strung a whole bunch of them together as well, actually. So there's a better listening experience if you want to listen to these as the entire chapters, I think. But yeah, it was one of those things where we didn't really know what we were doing too well, and we've hopefully cut a ridiculous amount of. I was going through the average. The average one I go into, I'm taking out about 10 or 12 adverts to get down to a couple. It's ridiculous. 14 or 15 ads an episode. So not my fault, folks. But you're supposed to kind of keep your videos off YouTube for a bit until you can go in and sort that out. And with these live streams, some people are kind of wanting to, are popping in and want to jump back and catch up on them. And if they take them down. So I correct them about, if you give each one, if you don't want to get the tons of adverts in any of these videos, give it 24 hours before you watch it and they should all be gone. That's the way I'm doing it at the minute. So the Zero Theorem, folks, very good film. Just to recap, then we're on the Banquet Scene in Frank Herbert's Dune, which Frank released as an LP. There's a picture of it in the episode, by the way, on vinyl, and I think you can listen to it on YouTube. I think there's a version of that where you can listen to Frank reading the entire Banquet Scene online. So another good thing about YouTube, I suppose, So Brad's saying, I came here to kick arse and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. As Rowdy Roddy Piper and They Live. What a great line. What a great film. I love that film. Karen's saying, I don't remember much, but apparently I gave the movie 4 stars. Oh, is that the Zero Theorem? Yeah, I'd kind of like to watch it again. I have, I always say this, I have my own wee turns of phrases, but I say I've got a sense of it, if you know what I mean, but I have watched it. Ads are the price you pay at the wishing well. Yes, they are, I suppose. It's interesting because I check the adverts on my station, and I had some very, very what I would call very dodgy adverts initially that I was not happy with at all. I'm just going, oh, as much as and I thought, as much as YouTube's checking your videos out to see if I'm suitable for certain advertisers, it really should go the other way as well. So I had some very dubious advertising. I'm pleased to say it's kind of changed significantly, and it's it's better matched, I suppose, the content and the station, I think. But yeah, they are the price. Reproduce, keep making more produce. Says Keith. Hi Keith, thanks for joining us. Keith, if we're on the Banquet Scene tonight, if anybody's got any questions, fire them away, or any comments. And yeah, I think it's fascinating. It operates a little bit in a. We have scenes like this, for example, in Shakespeare, and there is it's somebody was saying earlier, I think, when we were watching the video, that it's incredibly well written, incredibly well crafted scene, and it has good literary chops, if you see what I mean. And we were saying, yeah, we can see why it wouldn't fit into a film, but it fitted in, and I thought it was handled quite well. Most of the pictures that you see there are from Frank Herbert's Dune series, the TV series. And I thought that there's slight changes in the way things are done in there. But it's I thought it was very well done. Regardless of issues about that series, I quite enjoy that series. But I thought the Banquet Scene was real, and for the first time, to see it on screen for the first time, I really enjoyed it, and it did bring out that level of intrigue and sense of danger, and love these discussions, staying on topic. Yeah, whatever. I like to stay on topic too, Keith. I'm happy to wander as well. But yeah, I do my best. I'm one of those people that will answer any question if you like, But yeah, the absolute level of intrigue, the sense of violence, the level of risk, and the Atreides are completely alien to this place. They've set up, had a dinner, and brought all the major players into one room, really. And it's yes, Carol, that's kind of my problem with it. The costumes were pretty distracting, I don't even the sort of car kind of look like a bit like the Swiss Guard and stuff like that, and the look of it's not quite not quite happy of it with the. Yeah, I'd say the costumes. I think was a big problem with it, but it's still a very good show. I think it just had a budget, and what it tried to do, it had severe limitations, But the banquet scene, I think, it very handled very well. The actors do well, and yeah, I think the actress that plays Jessica, and I know we changed the actress, don't it? It becomes Alice Krieg, I think, later on. But I think she's pretty good in it. And I think Alec Newman's pretty good as Paul in that in the TV series as well. Um, mm. So we get ecological ideas presented, both real world and to do with Arrakis. We get a discussion of the importance of water. We get hydraulic despotism with a sort of and we see the Atreides use that later with Paul actually threatening to destroy Melange. The water seller Butte, basically the suggestion is that he's got all his water supplies rigged with explosives, and he can walk into the Atreides banquet and basically sit there and be quite cheeky to Leto, based on I control the water, and he's a real example within Dune of he that can destroy a thing controls a thing. And you wonder if that's where Paul learns that lesson from Butte. Butte, I think it is. That Bwt. Yes. Let's have a wee look at your comments, guys. But yeah, as I said, there's a lot to talk about within. You've got the guild. You've got some groups that we don't see too much of. We've got these escorts, who we reckon are running a blackmail ring. We've got we've got the water seller, the guild banker. We've got Liet Kynes. We have the different aspects of the household, and it's just a very interesting little bunch. There's still sit repair people, so we get a sense of industry and I suppose the real needs of the people of Arrakis, and water is at the heart of it all, I think. And this hydraulic despotism. I'll just catch up with your comments, guys. Brad says, ads on YouTube make me laugh when I'm listening to brutal fucked up metal and ads come on. All I can think is, this company has no idea why they're relating themselves to it, and I manically laugh. I couldn't agree more. Brad, oddly enough, I'm sure you've heard some of my comments about Northern Ireland, etc., but I seem to be attracting adverts for Northern Ireland tourism and for the Ulster Unionist Party, and which I'm certainly not a fan of. Don't vote for them, just in case you think that's where it's going with that. But I've seen some interesting technology ads and stuff. But yeah, they're often sometimes quite inappropriate. And I've noticed a lot of the online newspapers, particularly where there's a particularly harrowing story, and you get an advert jumping in, and it couldn't be more inappropriate. If you see what I mean, it happens quite a lot. Joseph Smith says, I love the giant flare and spectacle the costumes were. Yeah, there's some of them are quite full on, aren't they? I think Gaius Helena Mohiam's costume at the start's a bit odd, I think. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what sort of period that they're trying to look for. But I think the one thing that the miniseries uses really well is the use of color, and we talk a lot about the absence of skin color, etc., within the Dune series, but the use of color within the Dune series is quite important. And I think that the miniseries. Hello, you're right.
Keep going.
Oh, you pinched my cigarette. That's what it is. Right. Okay, got you. And I think that the miniseries actually uses color. If you take a look at it, even within the, I wonder, is it within the actual cover? Bear with me one wee second. Frank Herbert's Dune. Yeah, I always forget about William Hurt as Leto. Well, I forgot about William Hurt in that. Let me just see without breaking. I thought possibly. Yeah, there is the way color is used in the series is quite interesting. If you see the way the thing is lit, if you're a fan of it, it's quite curious. But we do get actors shifting around within the miniseries as well. So the only place you're going to see that is in Frank Herbert's Dune series, the miniseries. Or you can have a listen to it. I'd actually be quite curious to listen to it on vinyl. with those kind of, the natural grooves, that feeling you get when you listen to vinyl, But yeah, if you're saying, folks, if anybody hasn't, if we missed it, then there's a version of Frank Herbert has an LP of the Banquet Scene, basically, and and yeah, you can. I think it's on YouTube if you want to have a listen to Frank reading it. Yeah, I think he's an album. He's an LP for something else. I can't remember. He's a couple of spoken word LPs. I think maybe one's just readings from Dune or something. But if you have a wee look, there's a picture of the LP cover there in the video. But yeah, ads can be funny and inappropriate, can't they? Well, particularly guys, I think about the ones that have got 5 seconds to get your attention, and they at the point where they get to 5 seconds, they go, "It's my," and they haven't mentioned their product once. I think that's quite sad. A lot of talk about, so we're staying on topic. I'm happy to talk about all things, but staying on topic's handy. Yeah, well, actually gives me something to talk about. I'm on day 27 or 28 in a row of this, guys. Excuse me. So I'm just about all. Hopefully, I'm still maintaining my enthusiasm and not running out of things to talk about, So let's have a wee catch up with your comments there. But yeah, Joseph saying he loved the giant flare and spectacle of the costumes that were in the TV version of Dune. Yeah, I did enjoy it, as I said, and I think some things look better than others. This thus thing. Karen says the ads just make me yell. I will make it my life's mission to never buy your product before I resume cooking or whatever I was doing while bringing videos. And then a lot of talk about, so we're staying on topic. Do we ever see characters as directly related to Chom in any other chapters or sequels? Carol, sorry, my bad as usual, says. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. And it's interesting that it's a guild banker, isn't it? And he's from Gidi Prime. So I'm imagining that, Chom is a bit like Chom and the guild sort of, they'll take people from anywhere, I suppose. They must recruit. But the suggestion is that, the guild banker is also a Harkonnen spy. And that he both works for the guild as a banker, and that he's Harkonnen, And has been trained, I think, isn't it? We say he's been trained so his voice doesn't have a Harkonnen accent, though I think Jessica and Paul can both pick it up. Which question about planetary accents, I suppose. So, Karen, I'm not too sure, to be honest. Karen's joking, of course. No worries, Karen. I'm catching up as always. Firkin Kellick says, "Hi, friends." Hello, Firkin. Thanks for joining us. We're chatting about the Banquet Scene and doing our best to stay on topic, but we'll see how we do. If you've any questions, Firkin, fire away. Please ask away. Brad says, I haven't seen the series, but from what I saw today, it looks like the series rented a lot of costumes for 70s Doctor Who. They have a kind of similar vibe, but they're better made. And I would genuinely say some of the costumes are pretty good in it. I think it looks better by the time you get to the Children of Dune, which is a separate series. I think it looks a bit better. But if you haven't watched it, I would give it a shot. Yeah, it's the DVD. It's kind of like a 6-hour miniseries, I think, or sort of like 3 2-hour films if you want. But it's very good, and I think Alec Newman is a very, very good Paul Atreides, and he's the only person that we've seen take Paul Atreides from the beginning of Dune to the end of Children of Dune. And I think, I don't know what you guys think. I'm sure there's a lot of us have seen the Dune TV series. But I'm kind of curious, what did you think of Alec Newman's portrayal of Paul Atreides? As I said, I think it was very good, and the further we went along, I thought the more nuanced it was. I thought it was a very different take than Kyle MacLachlan's. So there we go. Everybody saying hello. Good dog. We need you enthusiastic. Yeah, I've got to get the enthusiasm going. The old cold and sore throat and all. It's been as I say, we always end up doing these things not under optimum circumstances. But I hope my enthusiasm still comes across, because I am enthusiastic for this. Christopher Crowley saying, not really. Chom, #Chom representation. not enough Chom people in the book. Yeah, it's one of those things where I suppose we could do a wee word search, but um, hmm. I think at the sense by the point where we get to the end of the action in the first Dune novel, the realization that Chom is the universal crutch, if you like. We talk about the evolutionary crutch, different things that are crutches to human society, and in particular, the Guild, Chom, the whole lot, that is their economic crutch, is what's the one thing that's all holding back their entire society. So probably I'd imagine that after June, the Guild really do shrink back into, they're under control from that point on. Mm. But it's maybe a wee bit like, the Tanaxi, we don't even see them in the first book. And they kept, and the Tanaxi are pretty cool. They're quite an impressive race, if you like, within the Dune series, and very well developed. And sort of kind of almost the main villains for a long time. Keith Cobb says, it's been too long since I actually read The Banquet Scene, so I'm not going to be much help staying on topic tonight. Not to worry, Keith. Excuse me. We can, as I said, I'm always happy to chat about anything to do with the Dune series at all. And certainly what's presented within The Banquet Scene would take us almost anywhere. It takes us into politics, gender, economy, ecology. There's the threat of violence. I mentioned there that somebody's there's a wee bit of academic work, and I think I mentioned it way back in possibly episode 2. It's where it's looking at it's somewhat, I can't remember who, but it's the point of looking at Dune as what's called the psychotic family novel. And I think I made a wee comment there that when we were when we were watching the video, that this is the psychotic family dinner of the psychotic family novel. There's two pretty much points in the dinner where it gets that close to violence. It's quite a tense thing, and everybody around the table's reason. It's one of those kind of things. It's almost a bit Reservoir Doggish, if you know what I mean. Everybody around the table's quite dangerous, and you really don't want everybody kicking off. It would just be probably quite bad. Excuse me, my nose is tickly. I still got this old cold. Ugh. And but I've started to feel a bit better. The head's a wee bit better today, and I'm thinking my throat's a bit better. So I'm going to keep drinking a bit more. Get those precious fluids, lubricating the old throat, and see how we do. Let's see. But yes, hashtag Chom representation. Thank you, Christopher. Yep, you did mention his vocal training. Keith says about the banker having a Gidi prime accent. Yes, to me it's amazing that common people would be intelligible at all from different plants. I totally agree, Keith. I put it this way: where I'm at here, within an 8-mile radius, there are people that's you would argue, oh, they're all from the same place and they barely speak English, the way you would think. There's such a range of accents where I'm from in a very small localized area, if you see what I mean. But 6 miles up the road, anywhere in Northern Ireland, it can be a completely different accent. And I think it's quite interesting because you do get that variety of accents. And it must be pretty mad in America. So many accents. Such a big place, and I'd argue that's for any sort of big sort of country like that. But England has a complete range of accents, and so does Scotland, and so does Wales. But I think it's quite. I often get identified as being Scottish for some reason, and I used to work in call centers when I was a young student, and always people tell me, "Oh, we love your lovely Scottish voice." And I would always go, depends on if I would manage to sell them anything at that point, but I would go, no, I'm not Scottish at all. So I don't have a kind of normal Northern Irish accent. Mine's a bit of a hybrid thing, and it's kind of a self kind of, I don't know, just for moving around an awful lot. So, but yeah, there's massive variation in accent. I wonder if Paul's never been off planet. How does he spot, or maybe it's Jessica that picks it up, I think, because she's the main observer of the banquet scene. But yeah, the fact that there's a Gidi prime accent seems a bit bizarre. Doubt most common people could afford space travel, so accents would diverge. Oh, I think I missed a wee bit there. Hang on, just quickly backing up. Frank left home as a present for his son to write about. Very good. That's a barbed point, Christopher. Very good. Carol says hashtag remove the crutch. Yeah, crutches. It's an interesting metaphor, but we all have them. Particularly when I teach my kids maths. The calculator. And as much as we have maths papers for calculator and for non-calculator, um, whenever I teach my kids the calculator paper, I get them to work without the calculator wherever possible. The calculator just does all the work for them, and it's a crutch. There's so many of them these days. But yes, and Keith's point, I doubt most common people could afford space travel, so accents would diverge wildly. Maybe the upper class would have a different dialect, most likely, probably even different language, I would say. We get the sense of multiple languages, with there's different battle dialects and battle languages in Dune, I think, isn't there? I think each house has its own battle language. So there are languages spoken and non-verbal, I think, within Dune. But yeah, accents, but quite tricky in an Imperium of a Thousand Moors. Brad says, Doc, wish I could lend you my vocal cords there. Good, Nick. Thank you, Brad. Very kind thought. Part of my volunteer work is to yell the same thing repeatedly for 2 hours so they'd be up for the job. And Brad says, Keith, totally agree about the accent. Yeah. There's Dean. Hi, Dean. Been missing it for about a week, Doc, and I've had to catch up. Enjoyed last night's convo during work today. I always assumed Uliet's death was accidental, but was interpreted as a mystical event. We all speak Muruka, says Christopher Rennie. Yeah, well, I think Dean is it just says it is a thing of record, doesn't it? And we wonder if it's become a myth over time. If we understand how myth would be what you call a euhemerist, probably, and that means that I believe that there's some element of historical truth to a myth, and it's not necessarily what the story says, but there's a seed there, if you see what I mean. Excuse me. So things happen, and then after a point where a person's passed away, etc., people can bring up stories or change them. The thing, stories always change with every slight retelling, if you see what I mean. And so, I think we're having a bit of a laugh about it, Dean. That it was the one thing that that kind of ruins the verisimilitude of the story for me a wee bit. And we all, as I was saying, we all know we have to have a bit of suspension of disbelief, but it was just that people don't kill themselves for no reason like that. So yeah, it could have been just slipped on as we were talking about, you could have slipped on a spiced coffee or slipped on a banana or something. But it's ladies, behave. Sorry about that. Noodles. Quiet, love. Sorry, the doggies go bark bark. No. So yeah, it's thanks for catching up on the videos and all, Dean. But yeah, it's just there's a few wee points we were making yesterday, I think, philosophically speaking, but it is one of those things that breaks down my suspension of disbelief. But it's a problem for writers in general. I think it's not that it's not just Frank Herbert. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes, particularly in the big screen, we're seeing it a lot lately. But sometimes characters just give up their lives too easily. It's just ridiculous. It's Close to violence. I ought to get you along to one of my family reunions. They play nice at the back, says Brad. No one talks about the coffee crutch. I'm an absolute mess in the morning without a cup of coffee, Carl. It's mainly why I don't do mornings. As I said, mornings do me. But I've got a super active brain, and all that stuff, but can't do a damn thing in the morning. Literally will burn myself trying to make my coffee. It's true. I'm just a complete zombie. Once I've had a sip of coffee, I suppose it's one of those acceptable drugs that we have in society. And I don't drink tea at all. But once I've had a cup of coffee, I'm ping awake. But even trying to make my coffee is quite horrific. And I tend to make combinations of what like my wife drinks tea, so I would tend to put coffee and a tea bag in and just look at what I've done and not understand. Just don't function properly in the morning. And I don't know, it's something to do with my sleep disorder, but I never have. But once I get a cup of coffee, I'm good. But yeah, the coffee crutch. Keith Cobb says regional accents are not nearly as varied here in the States as they are in the old world. We've only had English speakers for 200 or 300 years. Regional dialects haven't had time to diverge. Yeah, I get a sense of some accents from America. The Texan. I don't know, but yeah, as having an ear, having an ear and listening to Americans on TV. I suppose there's the southern accents and the Texan accents, but it's hard to really pick out. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that stick out to me, but otherwise, an American accent, if you see what I mean. Um, hmm. But yeah, no, I think the Texan one's kind of uh, a bit notable, I suppose. But I can't think of any others that really stick out. Um, probably that's maybe not true. Actually, maybe thinking of places, but yeah, I would have to rack my brains. But I couldn't tell you, for example, what someone's accent like was maybe like from Seattle or from I don't know, Boston or anything like that. I suppose we maybe know a bit of the New York, but it's more kind of impersonations of characters from films and stuff, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. But there's a ridiculous variety of regional accents within Ireland in general. But and yeah, we get all sorts. We have what's called brogue here. Um, brogue would be spoken by some of the travellers and some of the country folk just all around. I could speak a bit, no bother. Brogue is just really, really fast English, outrageously fast English. Just comes at you a mile a minute, and a lot of people can't understand it at all. But it is English. Let's just catch up. Christopher saying, in regards to the banquet, I think it's a good analogy for the book going forward, where the solutions come from violence wrapped in civility. Mm. And as I said, I wonder is that where Paul gets that idea, the speculation, eventually the idea of planting the bombs on them, we can destroy the spice. I wonder does he pick that up from Butte, the water setter, who we suspect has got explosives all over all the water supplies, It's quite interesting. Hmm. But yeah, there's all sorts. There's the threat of violence. There's a lot. It suggests it's a very violent society. There's power games at play, and there's a lot of people wanting to either. I suppose actually it's quite a lot of overt. To be honest with you, nothing's particularly subtle. There's attempts at subtlety, and I suppose a lot of the subtleties don't play out the way the players want them to when we get to look at them through the eyes of Jessica. If you see what I mean, she's our eyes in the banquet, and it's all the little observations and the clever things, and even the understanding. I think her Paul as well that Liet Kynes is either telling half truths or lying, or he's holding stuff back. There's so much misinformation as well going on within, and a bit of poking and prodding, an attempt to actually get emotional reactions. I think the accent is a city country divide, says Brad. Hmm. Again, I'd imagine Australia is pretty massive. I'd imagine a decent sort of difference in accents from say north and south or something like that. But who knows? It's again also maybe how your TV works and stuff. Hmm. TV, how communications, the sort of things you grow up listening to. Excuse me. I just thought when I was chatting, I used to live in Larne before I went away to England, and whenever I came back occasionally, mm, Larne is a Viking town in on the northeast coast of Northern Ireland. When I used to come back there from London, people that sort of knew me there used to say, "What happened to your accent? You don't sound like a Larne man anymore." And the thing was, I was never from Larne in the first place. They forgot that I'd moved there. And it was quite interesting actually. I thought that they kind of considered me one of their own for a point, but I had never had a Larne accent. And the really interesting thing actually, from my point of view, is that my grandfather, unbeknownst to me at the time, is originally from Larne as well. But I don't have a Larne accent because I'm not from Larne. But yeah. Keith says, I am a machine that converts coffee to code. Right, Keith? Got you. Yeah, I drink too much coffee, I have to say. Brad says maybe he'd be listening to the SOD song Kill Yourself a bit too much. SOD. SOD. Expand your acronym for me, Brad. My memory's not that. I'm trying to think of that song, Kill Yourself. Karen says, the day the flesh shapes the flesh, the day shapes. Juglito. I don't do mornings, mornings do me. Doc Sloan, same energy. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for quoting me. I do appreciate that, Carol. Christopher Crowley, says Paul is able to take over the empire. Maybe from a lesson learned at the banquet is that he threatens to stop spice production entirely, which causes the guild to fold. It's the guild they're that reliant on melange. It's as simple as that. They're absolutely dependent on it, and I'd say at the point where Paul run, that's it. The guilds probably are used to carry their main job after Paul becomes emperor. I'd imagine is to take the Fremen on their jihad to the Thousand Worlds. So I'd imagine that's what they're busy doing, and as long as they keep, well, basically they do whatever Paul wants, they'll keep getting their melange. But yeah, and yeah, who know? I mean, it really is we talk about we talked the other day, Christopher, about I think Karen was saying that the film really comes at the story from the kind of the Bildungsroman and the coming of age novel, if you see what I mean. And this is kind of why this scene's pretty important. And we talked about the difference between theory and application. Well, this is a young man who's been trained and given all this theoretical training his entire life. The dinner is kind of his deep end. It's where he's put into it, and we get to see him operate shrewdly. And he's being educated and being an educator at the same time. And to the point where he actually has at a certain point within the dinner, it's clear that there are allegiances have been formed in favor of Paul rather than the various other operators at the dinner, and that's particularly as Kynes and the smugglers, Esmer Turek. So he's got the right. Whatever he's doing in this political scene, his salvation later on is actually sown in the dinner, in the banquet scene, I think. But that's a good point. And yeah, that again, if you think about it, I'm going to destroy something. It's easy to destroy. It's not simple to create. And ultimately, that's what Paul does in the end, isn't it? He that can destroy a thing controls a thing. It's a true statement. It actually does make sense, but it speaks to a kind of immaturity and a sense of violence about things and a certain way of thinking. But it's the despotism of the world that he lives in. If you like, Paul Atreides doesn't create the universe that he's in. Yeah, interesting point. Keith saying there certainly are some accents, Texan, New York, Boston, Southern, but it's not like you say go a few miles and people are nearly unintelligible to each other. Yeah, I'd imagine. As I said, we get American TV, kind of your massive country, so you get TV shows from California, TV shows from New York, from all over the place, really, and it's accents don't really stick out too much. I think to me, as some English ones would, but again, a lot of English accents sound quite similar to me. But yeah, and my understanding is I sound a bit. What was it? I was told. I think my German's a bit Bavarian, apparently, or something like that. Yeah, but there you go. So accents all over the place. Yeah, turn of phrase, local colloquialisms as well. Language is wonderful. I think. I wish I had better schooling in language when I was young. In fact, moving schools an awful lot. I kept moving to schools that did different languages than the school I'd been to. So yeah, pity. Because I quite like to have. I'd love to get the time to learn a few languages. Just very good with words and use words to get my way around the world. So I often brush up on a language before I travel, just a little, very basics. Hello, please, thank you, that kind of thing, and understand kind of like the romance languages have similarities. The Germanic languages have similarities. So it's kind of I run by etymology, and I've managed to figure out how to communicate to people in different countries by running through certain words in certain languages. It's quite interesting. Mm. Was the old idea that Scooby Doo and Shaggy knew how to say one word in every language in the world, and that word is help. And I always thought that was a very, I don't know when, I must have saw that when I was a child, but I always thought that was a very clever thing to know how to say help in every language in the world. But of course, Mayday or SOS would do the job probably. I'm rambling, folks. I'm going to get back on topic. Let's see where we're at. Brad says, at the banquet, wouldn't one of the attendees have been a ring in for the guild? Surely they would want an ear to the ground, being one of the few groups that really know the value of the spice. Well, we've got the guild banker, and I said we get the impression that he's a Harkonnen agent, really, isn't he? But there's also there's a range of people there. I think some of them are more focused on than others, but the general sense that we get, Brad, is that they're all intriguing. There's a bunch of escorts. There's an escort service there, and it suggests that they're part of a blackmail ring. I think all the interests are represented certainly at the dinner table. And of course, there's no obvious Harkonnens there, but that's the guild banker's rep. He's their man, and I think it's possible that they're well aware that there's other probably Harkonnen, at least affiliates there, and I think Butte comes out being of note because he's again sort of demonstrates his power. Excuse me, but the realization to Leto that this guy's got a bit of, this guy's got a set of cojones on him. He's kind of being cheeky to me in my own dining room. What? He realizes that he must have been the same way with the Harkonnens, and that Butte, the water seller, how can he be so cocky? How can he be so rude? Must be from the absolute assurance that he can blow up all the water. And so you get the sense that Butte, as the water seller, has kind of been able to stay outside of the manipulations and power plays of the houses, though he's playing a dangerous game. Excuse me. But yeah, everybody's in there. I think, Brad, at the end of the day, the banquet scene, all of those groups are there. And I said, if you remember that Kynes kind of he's there, and he's there as the imperial judge of the change and the ecologist, but he's also the Fremen. He's at Fremen representation there. Brad saying, look, here accents of Australia are very similar. It's the words that are used that can tell you where people are from. And Dean saying Northern Ireland is ridiculously small, but has a huge variation of accents. It does indeed. I don't think it comes down to time, but it's rather about regional isolation due to poor infrastructure and social divisions. And your economy, or sorry, not your economy, your ecology, I suppose, imposes itself upon, but even language, yeah. Rain, for example, SODs. Thank you, Brad. Stormtroopers of Death. What was that song backing up? Sod, kill yourself. Right. Side project Scott Ian from Anthrax. Gotcha. They did their best to be offensive to attack the PMRC stance on censorship at that stage. Yeah, Parental Music Resource Center, Tipper Court, Washington, Stepford Wives. Remember, that's all the whole parental advisory stuff and all that, isn't it? That started appearing on records back in the day. Scott Ian from Anthrax is a big Judge Dredd fan, isn't he? There's a reasonable relationship, if I'm not mistaken, between Anthrax and Judge Dredd, and I think even in the comic. But I am the man. I think I used to play that once. I don't think I've played too much Anthrax in my day. But I am the man. I am the man. I am so bad. I should be in detention. Is that them? Maybe I can't remember. Goodness. But I'm trying to remember what's the name of the anthem. Is it I Am the Man or something? The Anthrax song. The Judge Dredd one. Sorry, rambling away. Frank Zappa put an explicit lyrics advisory on one of his instrumental albums. It is kind of bizarre, I think. It some songs, I suppose, just Some guy just effing and blinding for no reason. It's not particularly fun to listen to. Mm. But, swear words have their place in society. And there's nothing particularly bad about it. I suppose the interesting thing is they can always be used in a non-offensive way, I think, a lot of them. But they can also be used in an offensive way. Brad saying, I knew an old guy, ex-military, who in 36 different languages could say, I will have 2 beers, please, and my friend will pay. Excellent. Very good, very good. Firkin Kellick saying, speaking of the banquet scene, in the beginning, Frank Herbert is talking about greatness, and he says the person who experiences greatness must have a sense of sardonic. Yes. I'm reading a book about the life of M. Kemal Ataturk from writer Lord Kinross, and Ataturk is talking about greatness too, and he's really talking like Herbert. Yeah, the sense of the sardonic. And oh, sorry, I'll just thread is continuing on, Fergus. And it's really impressed me because M. Kemal is really charismatic leader and a savior for the Turkish people from Ottoman and the other World War One countries. Yeah, he's a particular. I mean, he's of note, I suppose, within modern politics, isn't he? The sense of the sardonic is. I totally agree. Yes, that's Herbert. Give you the definition. I love this word. Just here we go. Now, it's from Sardonius, believe it or not, but the definition is to be grimly mocking or cynical. Okay, comes from the Greek word sardonios, which means from Sardinia, of Sardinia. So it's to just have a twisted, dark sense of humor about your own role in all of this, if you see what I mean. And oh, hang on, Firkin, let me just catch up with you. And it made me visualize M. Kemal like Paul Atreides, and Herbert talks about charismatic leaders a lot in his works. It's really smart, right-thinking people can think the same things despite the geography and history barrier. Although Herbert's view of charismatic leaders was rightly negative, a charismatic leader who shared his ideas created a new nation. My aim is not the nationalism, don't get me wrong, friends. I just wanted to share this. I rewrite it a little bit long. Sorry, no worries at all, Firkin. I totally understand what you're saying. It's the ultimate thing, Firkin, I think, with Herbert's message about heroes. In this case, we have Ataturk's a military and political leader, isn't he? What he's talking about is ultimately he presents. I say this in you'll get a couple of days' time. We get my conclusions. I think Herbert's attitude to the hero is, I call it slightly schizophrenic. In other words, he is warning us about these people, these really dangerous, and particularly people with a high level of charisma, as you put it, beyond the normal charisma, beyond something slightly sets them apart, whatever it may be. And the warning, I suppose, is that these people, if you think about, we talk about electing our political leaders. We were talking about people the other day about how often our politicians have no understanding of the consequences of the roll down of what they do. Was it the Webster quote? If some cursed example poison it near the head, death and disease through the whole land spread. That kind of thing. Often the sense of, I'm a person of the people, I'm going to, and the nature of power, we get into somewhere like parliament or government or a senate, etc. And the people are more and more separated from you. And these people a lot of our politicians look to their own sense of history, if you see what I mean, which often tells you enough. And as it Churchill said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. Words for Churchill back through time. No, you won't. A historian will write it. And actually, Churchill's not a particularly nice person. And his actions during the war, you'd call him a war criminal today. The speech that he's most, that we'll fight them on the beaches, if you look at that speech very carefully, that's a we're absolutely screwed speech. Please, will all our colonies come and fight for us now because we're doomed? And if you do, we'll give you your freedom after the World War II. That's if you look at the details of that speech. So the thing is, it's about their own sense of place in history. I'm going to catch up with what Firkin is saying about the sardonic, is that we seldom have this. We could call it, a self-deprecation to a degree, to be grimly aware. And Paul is, and I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to actually show you something quote you something that Paul says in a minute. I'm just going to scribble this down to remember it, but it's to do with what is the jihad and should he bother kind of thing. Excuse me. So the point is, we do have these, and Herbert's warning is against them. Yet at the same time, we do understand throughout history that there have been real heroes, that society needed people, that they brought, whatever these people did, often exceptional individuals, that they brought about real change, often involving their own death. That's kind of the key thing to do with the hero. So in terms of what Herbert's saying, I don't know if it's a suggestion that if you wanted to avoid being destroyed by power like that, being corrupted by it, and creating these truly catastrophic mistakes, that these heroes, these politicians, particularly these groups are kind of aware of their own place in history and look at it that way, thinking that I'm going to do it, I've got my place in history. And so it's an egotistical approach, if you understand. And even Tony Blair, I think, said something about his place in history. Even in this country, all the terrorist organizations run a mythical narrative that they think will be embedded into history. And they're wrong, because historians will write history to the best of their ability, hopefully without bias, and aim to discover the truth for future generations. That's the point of it. So back to this, what Firkin's saying about the sardonic. Herbert is a wee bit schizophrenic, and you have to ask, does he really believe that heroes are truly catastrophic for society? And they can be, but does he think that that we need heroes? That can we have the right type of hero? And I believe so. And this is what I call it slightly schizophrenic, because he really does sell one thing to us. Excuse me. And by the end, we're not too sure. And we have the Duncan Idaho, possibly the Miles Tegg character that doesn't fall into the hero pattern, doesn't fall into the Camelot pattern. And so it's also to do with the idea of power attracting the corruptible, not that it corrupts. And the more power you have, the more you want. So to the point, I think if you do have a grim sense of yourself, of your place in history, and that it's probably the best way to use it, darkly comedic. Me and my wife would talk about this, just to give you an idea. I have an incredibly dark sense of humor that absolutely appalls most people. Appalls my son. My wife's quite similar, and it's to do with our life experience, and it's extremely dark. And I'm a reasonably smart guy. I'm self-deprecating. I know my own limitations, and I know I can be an absolute idiot. I can be a complete twat if I at times, though I tend to prefer my own, use my own wits more than other people's. I tend to trust myself a lot more than other people. But I'm a bit self-deprecating, and I don't let my ego blow my head up. And if you see what I mean, I try to keep myself down to earth. And if I don't do that, my wife will do it for me. You see what I mean? So in terms of what you're saying, the kind of right type of hero that is aware of their own place in history, but it's more about being accepting of it, being darkly humorous, being self-deprecating, being aware that you're still a human and that you're not a man greater than other people, or man or a woman. Does that make sense? Firkin. So you have a very charismatic leader who shared his ideas, created a new nation. Excuse me. So the question I've got for you, Firkin, is in terms of what you were saying about, you looked at M. Camel as being like Paul Atreides, and the question I have for you is: was he grimly sardonic? Was he a self-deprecating man? Did he? Could he make fun of himself? Could he get into the gutter and clean out crap with everyone else who's cleaning out crap? Because that's kind of the way I would look at it. A person who's grounded, and not just grounded, but knows what they're doing and can laugh about it, I suppose, in a twisted way. I look at it a bit like self-deprecation. Sorry if that was a long answer, folks, but I thought it was quite an interesting one. Let me just catch up with you folks. Brad Rookie. Back to, oh yes, Brad saying, yeah, Scott Ian is, I had an Anthrax. I am the law poster. I am the man is from the, it is. Thank you, Brad. From the Anthrax album Attack of the Killer Bees. It's B-sides and other such things that doesn't suit normal Anthrax albums. Well, I'm going back to my guitar playing of my second decade, I suppose, my teens. Back in the days when I couldn't play a guitar, if you know. But the Keith Kolb says, on the topic of screw your topic, I wonder if House Atreides could have survived the assault of the Sardaukar if they had sussed out Yuri as the traitor and avoided the sabotage of the House shields. I don't mind drifting off the topic, don't worry, guys. Possibly. The assault of the Sardaukar and the Harkonnen. I don't know. I think the shields have an obvious flaw. Most of the technologies can be brought down really simply. Excuse me, within the Dune universe. My money would be no, I think. But I think if the whole traitor thing and the shields thing didn't work, I think there would have been the way the Landsrat is meant to work is that all the other houses are meant to prevent the Emperor from doing what he does to House Atreides with the Harkonnen. So the point about, I suppose, what does happen when House Atreides is attacked, Keith, is that the Landsrat do nothing, which gives Paul a legal thing later on. But they don't act, and it's kind of like interestingly enough, Keith, I'm doing a video on this stuff at the minute. We're talking about the myths of the Pelopids and the overlay onto House Atreides, etc. If you know the Trojan War, Helen of Troy is originally Helen of Sparta, and she's kidnapped more than once in her life. But essentially, all the roughly the story goes, I think, that all the kings of Greece get together to draw lots for who will marry her, and they agree that basically whoever marries Helen of Troy, anybody could just attack that king and take her. If you see, when they all want her. And so they all agree to form an alliance that whoever ever takes Helen of Troy from the person who marries her, whichever king it may be, that they'll all pile in and sort that out. So the Landsrat kind of works in the same way as the Greek kings promise to whoever marries Helen of Troy, which I think is quite interesting. I know it might not seem like it, but so yes, I think they could have survived the assault, but it depends on what if the guild would let them. But the House Atreides troops are meant to be pretty close to the Harkonnen, or sorry, the Sardaukar in fighting ability, aren't they? Trained within a hair's breadth or something, I think they say. Brad says Churchill sent the Anzacs to their death in World War One. Ataturk paid those soldiers much respect. Anzac is Australia, New Zealand Army Corps. Yes, indeed, Brad. Keith Kolb says the Sardaukar and the Harkonnens is kind of like in World War II saying the Wehrmacht and the attacks. Grimdark saying Menelaus gets his wife back, however, after the Trojan War. Yeah, I know. Isn't that kind of funny? They just go back. They just go back home after all that. Shall we, dear? Yeah, let's go home. It's kind of anticlimactic, isn't it? In a sense. I think they go on a wee tour. Don't put the Harkonnens down like that, says bro. I'll tell you something if you're interested. In terms of World War II stuff, tell you what, is it here? Is here, by the way, just to show you folks. I know I keep talking about these myths, and if you really want to, the Agamemnon, there you go. This is this is Aeschylus's Oresteia, which is a trilogy of plays, and this is the whole cycle of repetitive murder. Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and the Eumenides are the kindly ones. So that's the three plays. That's your Deus Ex Machina, etc. And that's the whole returning from Troy. So Menelaus goes home with Helen, but Agamemnon's murdered by his wife Clytemnestra, and we get this repetitive cycle of violence, which is, and again, this is the Agamemnon's one of the Atreides. So the sons of Atreus. Now, what was I thinking on a wee second ago there? Just in terms of the point we were making, oh yes, World War II books. 1 second, science fiction. It's right here. I don't know, happened to bring up. If Babs is watching, Babs, there you go, Alan Dean Foster. My copy of Alien by Alan Dean Foster. We're having a chat about Alan Dean Foster a while back. Here we go. Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five. I highly recommend it. It has another name, doesn't it? It's also known as. I thought it had an alternate title. Pilgrim's Progress, was that it? But yes, Billy Pilgrim. Could have sworn this book. Oh, yes, it does. Slaughterhouse-Five, or The Children's Crusade, A Duty Dance with Death. That's the other title of it. About Dresden. And if you want to see what the Americans and the British say about Dresden, compared to what Kurt Vonnegut has to say to it, that's fascinating. And he's a first-hand witness. He was in Dresden when it was bombed. Slaughterhouse-Five is a really important science fiction book. It's a fantastic book. I managed to just pick up a copy of it. I found a film version of it recently, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Particularly the whole Kurt Vonnegut was in Dresden when it was firebombed. You know, I talk about Churchill and etc. A war crime. And today, the Allies don't like to present the number of people killed in Dresden correctly in the firebombing, you know. But it's also to do with the fact that all the Allies, a lot of their prisoners of war were sent to Dresden just before it got blown up. So it was a real kind of and that's kind of why the Allies don't like to talk about it too much. They firebombed a lot of their own people. Terrible. Agamemnon's cursed like the rest of House Atreus. They're not all cursed. Well, suppose Atreus is from his father, yes. Really, this house is House of Atreus would be just his family's house, but these are the family lines, the Pelopons, Grimdark. So yeah, it's I suppose depending on how you look at it, but ultimately the spiral of violence does end with Orestes, and that play also acts as a creation myth, if you like, or an origin story for the city of Athens. Doesn't it? Because it doesn't say the Eumenides, isn't it? The kindly ones. The Eumenides are what the Furies become, and the Furies are the Greek goddesses of familial revenge. Cry out for blood when within family murders. There's a different goddess for normal revenge, if you like, and her name's Nemesis. But yeah, there's different curses. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing the video, Grimdark, by the way, is that because there's actually the curse of Tantalus, and I think somebody had done a wee video on the Atreides myths, if you like, and they talked about that it was the curse of Tantalus down throughout the entire line, and it's not. So because there's a couple of different curses actually, but Tantalus has his own. Tantalus is his own thing, and so his son is Pelops, and they assume that his son is part of that curse as well is wrong, because the gods actually out of bring Pelops back to life. So the gods save Pelops; they don't curse him. So it's not a perpetual curse. It's different. Tantalus commits 3 crimes against the gods, but so they give him a particular punishment for it. So the curse that. And one of them is actually sort of, chopping up his own son and trying to feed the gods to him. And one of the gods does eat a bit of him. So the gods kind of bring Pelops back to life, give him a silver shoulder, I believe, and set him on his way. So they're not cursing. It's different curses. I think the curse of the House of Atreus is actually from a mortal, a person. I'm just working on it at the minute, but my Greek names are a bit funny sometimes. But I'm looking forward to presenting that to you guys, hopefully in about just over a week's time, if I can get it finished. Keith Cobb, run out of characters, says run out of characters. It's not just the house shields, but the whole upper chain of command. If they found out early enough, they might have had advanced knowledge of when and where the attack would take place. The Allies don't talk about Dresden. But equally, the Nazis grossly overstated the casualties and brutality for their own propaganda. Oh, I totally agree. I mean, World War II is total war, Keith. There's nothing nice about it. Nobody really comes out of it particularly nice. I think it's just a slaughter fest. Oh, mm. But you have sides fighting total war, which is a bit different than regular war, I suppose. So yeah, it's all propaganda. Ultimately, it's just, I suppose, it's from Kurt. Check out Keith. Check out Slaughterhouse 5, cracking read, but you're kind of going to get Kurt Vonnegut's view in it. I think he's talked about it quite a bit. I find quite. I watched Kurt Vonnegut give a speech recently about different types of stories and stuff. It was on YouTube. I was thoroughly impressed by him as a speaker. I thought he's a very deceptive speaker in a good way, if you know what I mean. But I thought he's very clever. Um, Certainly a person you wouldn't want to underestimate. I think that's what I got. I thought he kind of presents himself as a sort of, I know a wee bit about this myself, but as a sort of person that you would underestimate. You should not at all. It's what makes him a great speaker. But yeah, check out some of the Kurt Vonnegut stuff. Slaughterhouse 5, the girls being boiled alive in the water tower always stuck to me. Oh, details long ago since I've read it, but yeah, it kind of moves forward in time. It goes on around about 3 different time periods, isn't it? And it's back to Dresden, the point where he was recovering in hospital, and then it goes, if I can remember correctly, it goes sort of forward in time to where he's kept in an alien zoo. I think, isn't it? With a tell you what, it's time for a reread, isn't it? With a film star or something. Not a particularly long book, but I remember I haven't read this in ages, but I loved it at the time. Everything there you go. Everything was beautiful and nothing. But yeah, Slaughterhouse 5, highly recommend. Have I read any other kind of? Let's see. Have I read any other? Sirens of Titan, I think, a long time ago. Breakfast of Champions, I think that's. Probably, I haven't read too much. Haven't read too much Kurt Vonnegut at all, but based on this, I'd actually, yeah, something I should correct. He's one of those authors that just kind of came to kind of later. No, I must have came to him about late 90s or something like that. But yeah, if you haven't read the book, it's Bizarro. So, don't have as my to-do list. Sorry, don't think. Sorry, it's okay, guys. I don't think we're spoiling too much about it. It's more. It's you just got a very loose outline, but I don't think I'll give away the story at all. But it is semi-autobiographical, and it's kind of about written 1969. Spoilers are fine. Semi-autobiographical and deals with, I suppose, different aspects of his experiences, and you can look at it in some ways as having a breakdown, having a physical recovery. I think the interesting bit was that I think is biographically true from the book is that in the story that I think in reality, whenever Vonnegut was in the hospital, the guy in the bed next to him was an air marshal, and he was one of the air marshals that was involved, I think, in the bombing of Dresden. And I do believe that Vonnegut got out of his. I might be. This is a long time, so I might be remembering incorrectly. But if I do remember what I remember reading, I believe that Vonnegut got out of the bed, tried to kill him, basically wanted to strangle this guy. Welcome to the Monkey House is a collection of Vonnegut short stories well worth the time, says Chaya Rivka. Thank you very much. I know he's really again he's one of those very notable writers that I've only just read a tiny bit of, but my understanding is he's really well regarded in America, and is certainly seen as one of the great writers of American fiction in the 20th and early 21st century. So I don't know if you guys could let me know if that's the case, but I certainly thought he was held in very, very high regard in America. So yeah, welcome to the Monkey House. Thank you, Chad. That's yeah, I definitely like to read all the stuff I love to read, But I've actually said I would do a wee video on. It's in my list of in my wee A to Z, V for Vonnegut, obviously. So definitely thought we would have a look at Slaughterhouse 5. And that was the good thing because I have the film that I've got the DVD. I got it for a couple of pounds, but I've yet to watch it. So I figured that would be a good opportunity to read the book again and quickly watch the film and put the two together and do a wee video about them. So wee bit down the road, but looking forward to it. So there we are. Folks, I'll go to about midnight tonight, so we've got a wee bit of time left. So if you do have any other questions on staying on topic, the banquet scene that's not in the films but is in the TV show, or anything to do with it, or all things Dune or science fiction related, or even ecologically related, fire away. But yes, we're wondering about the place a wee bit, as we always do incorporate a bit of other science fiction in, don't we? And it's good to get suggestions and stuff like that. Keith Kolb is saying, yes, Vonnegut is held in high regard, so much so that many academics deny that his work is actually science fiction. Oh, we talked about this, Keith. This is an ongoing problem for science fiction works within academia, which gets to the point where academia just, it's not really much point paying attention to it within the science fiction world. As somebody who's actually studied it myself, it's kind of almost a bleed of fandom. And when we do get books that are of real literary quality within science fiction, we do get a lot of kind of low quality stuff as well. Some authors don't want to be associated; they don't want people to look at it as science fiction. I think others don't care, to be honest. And it is an interesting thing. And some people don't like the term; maybe they prefer speculative fiction, etc., etc. But I mean, books that fall into that category, I mean, they're kind of obvious ones. But people look at 1984 and go, I've actually had an English teacher run across an English lecturer, a university lecturer, run across the room and scream at me that it's not science fiction. How is it science fiction? Bonkers, And 1984, things like that, Brave New World, you know, it's quite, even things like Flowers for Algernon and um, I don't know. There's a whole lot of books that are obviously science fiction to me, and people go, "Oh no, it's not," or anything like that. And Herbert talks about science fiction as a literature that's seen as being in, and this is his own words, in the gutter, and that he's kind of, and I think also within his own words, he kind of says, he kind of feels that he'd like to keep it that way, I suppose, which is an interesting thing. Um, I think Vonnegut himself is fine, but yeah, there's a few authors that got a bit shirty over it. It's speculative fiction, or it's proper literature, but I think science fiction. We talk about what is science fiction, and I've a wee video on it. If I've definitions of science fiction there, folks, if anybody wants to look at it on the station, and it's my attempt to cut through the nonsense, I suppose. Uh, which I do a fair bit of. I think I've sort of kind of set my stall up as a bit of an anti-academic. I think, even though I'm kind of an academic, it's a bit weird. But yeah, I'm trying to think of. I think likes of. I think a lot of the new wave writers, Keith, aren't too chirpy with it. I think they like to think of the Ballard and stuff like that, speculative fiction. I think Heinlein liked to think of it as speculative fiction as well, didn't he? Mm. But it's just science fiction, I think, pretty much. I don't know. It's strange sometimes, but I don't know. A lot of stuff is very obviously science fiction to me, and I've never been able to think of 1984 as anything other than science fiction. Hmm. Brad says, Karen said yesterday something that adds up to me. If the focus of the new movie is Paul's path, then dropping the banquet scene for pacing makes sense. No point introducing people and ideas that won't be. ... Yeah, it does make sense. It is a big scene. I mean, it's in terms of, if you had to dramatize it. You've got a lot of dialogue. You've got a lot of actors. You've got a lot of parts. And as you say, once the banquet scene moves off, a couple of the characters are kind of important from there, but they don't last too long. I suppose Kynes and Tuick are killed quite early on, and but yeah, the rest of them don't really, um, they're not really there. They're not going to be a part of the plot. They're they're not going to drive the story. It really is just it's a setup, and it's a well constructed scene, and it is really there to get the politics, understanding, and ecology, get all that out, I think, and do it in a way that's satisfying, other than just throwing out a chunk of exposition. There's the rest of your comment, but I'll read the whole thing now. Carolyn said yesterday something that adds up to me. If the focus of the new movie is Paul's path, then dropping the banquet scene for pacing makes sense. No point introducing people and ideas that won't be explored properly. And it does make sense. What do you think? Yeah, as I said, just that was the gist we got of it, Brad. The people, yes, I do get that. Too many characters. Unfortunately, it's where an awful lot of the ideas are. We talked a wee bit about um, it's what ideas are being dropped, if you like, in favor of pacing, narrative, and I think somebody was pointing. Karen sends me stuff, and I look at some stuff on Twitter, some the odd article talking about the removal of. I was reading one talking about the removal or the cutting down of some Islamic terms, really to keep it easier to understand, and but in terms of the ecological idea, it is a big place, and it's also kind of where we learn more about the Fremen from the other people's point of view. We can see how they're viewed in some ways. They might be like cannibals or vampires or something like that. But there's a reality to the Fremen and the necessity of what they do, which would stop you looking at them, I suppose, as kind of like something horrific. Um, mm, so I don't know. The TV series is said about 6 hours long, so it fits really well in there. It gives them time to explore it properly, and it really does set it up quite well, I think. Excuse me. But as it would be if Denis Villeneuve's got a 2.5 hour film, I'd argue that if you're filming the banquet scene, it's probably going to take half an hour your movie up. So I do agree. It's probably it's just that it's also the other things that are. I'm curious about if you're going to want to take away from things that something's pretty famous for. You don't want to go too nuts chopping away this. You might want to take a little bit out, take a little bit out here. But I am kind of worried that you could present Dune with in a way that's not even remotely ecological at all. Um, you know, style over substance. If you see what I mean, I can't comment until I see the film. But and again, what Karen's saying is we don't know how that's going to maybe be developed in the second film either. If because something is removed from the first film that's kind of important in terms of the ecological message, who's to say that they haven't created something new or fresh or figured out some way of handling it in part two? If you see what I mean. Excuse me. Hmm. So yeah, I agree. For pacing, it would be difficult, and it would be difficult to take a piece of it. If you see what I mean, you kind of need it's either all or nothing. I would think. Karen says, "Yeah, at this point, I see the banquet scene as a gem that people can discover when the movie makes them read the book." Yeah, as I said, and it's on LP. I think there's a Frank Herbert's greatest has actually done the banquet scene, so you can actually listen to Frank read it himself. I think, and that's a good thing. Sometimes I think listening to an author read their own work. The banquet scene beautifully expresses the Chaya Rivka says the banquet scene beautifully expresses the tensions on Dune and within the Imperium. Wondering how they'll film Jessica's political analysis of the balance of power in the room. Yeah, um, that's what we've been saying, Chaya. We think the banquet scene. We're pretty sure the banquet scene's not in the film. So in terms of, and it's through Jessica's eyes, as Chaya says there, that we really an observation what's being said by the people at the banquet isn't necessarily what's true, and it also shows you that Kynes is kind of not ready to trust the Atreides as well. I think that there's active lies, etc. It's just that Jessica, mainly Jessica and Paul, can also pick it up. But it's a good point, Chaya. How will they balance the political analysis of the balance of power in the room? I suppose we wouldn't even get that. We'll not have a sense of the water seller's power there at all. Maybe they might just have meet the water seller. I don't know. I can't wait to see it, Chaya. To be honest with you, but it's all this speculation, I suppose. And we have taken the thing apart in a rather particular way. So I'm hoping my main concern is that they don't lose the ecological message. I think because I think it is really important, and I think possibly the dodgy leaders. The whole point about dangerous leadership that will probably be the main. The dangerous hero, that kind of thing. Does Brad says it does make me think that the movie universe isn't as big as the book, though. And then Grimdark Alvin Lore Master says, "Do you think we'll cut the spice orgy in part 2?" Um, hmm. Brad says, Brad Rose says the Grimdark. If they do, I'm going to boycott. We got a bit of the spice orgy in the TV series, didn't we? And of course, if you know how big a rip-off of Dune that the Matrix is, then you got your orgy in there as well. If you see what I mean. It was a rave, I think. But I don't know. It's an important part of what happens with transforming the water of life, isn't it? So it gives us an interesting insight into Fremen life. It's one of those things that we could even take to a totally different level of sexual health amongst the Fremen after orgy. Fremen STDs, etc. You could go all sorts of places with that, couldn't you? Hello. Oh, no worries. I'm stressing my wife. Just there we are, love. Tunt, 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 tunt. There we go. Okay, no worries. Wrapping up in about 10 minutes or so. Sorry, just saying hi to the wife there. Let me just catch up with your points there, folks. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll have an orgy in it, and I don't know if it's. I suppose if you're going to cut stuff out to make sure, shall we lose the orgy or shall we lose the dinner scene? Orgy doesn't last too long, in my understanding. But there you go. Be interesting to see how they handle that. I don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the transmutation of the water of life, actually, with Jessica doing that. I get Carol's probably seen a bit of this. Oh, no, you wouldn't have actually if that's where the film ends. Yeah, I know where the film ends. Okie dokie. Carol's saying, even as incomplete as part 1 stands right now, in terms of what the messages are supposed to be, it's still the best advertisement the book has ever had. Yeah, good point, Karen. At the end of the day, the ecological message is in the book, isn't it? And if the film sends a new generation to these books and they get it, then excellent. But as I said, it's the same with David Lynch's Dune. It's not all of the stuff's not there. What you end up is an enjoyable romp of entertainment and has a few ideas in it, but it's not a fully on. There's Frank Herbert's Dune in a couple of hours. So I'm wondering if I'll like, because I really like David Lynch's Dune, I have to say. So the question is, for me, which film am I going to like better, despite, and I'll put in a weighing in factor of that there's differences in technology and budget and stuff, but I'm kind of curious to see which would on an even footing. I wonder which film's better, and it's probably going to be the new one, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's a good point. Let's hope it takes people to the book. Ron Rose says they need to make a 14-hour movie to fit everything in. See what I did there. Paul and Jamas also fight in loincloths in the miniseries beside the spice orgy. That's right. And yeah, it's to do with that. It's also why to do with the way the water works after as well. That why isn't it's because they fight. They don't fight with their suits on. I thought it looked a wee bit comical, I have to say, though, Grimdark in the miniseries, because it looked like the two of them were fighting in nappies, as I recall. I might be wrong, but I genuinely thought it looked like two grown men in nappies fighting each other with knives. Jodorowsky's Dune screenplay was equivalent to 14 hours. I've watched the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, and I'm so glad he never got to make that film. So glad. I think Dune fans would have wanted to lynch him, no pun intended. Because I don't think it would have looked anything like Dune at all. Jean-Pierre Bernier says, thank you for your work and channel. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Happy to have a chance to tell you live. Oh, very kind, sir. Thanks very much for joining us. If you've got any questions, we're chatting away about the banquet, all things Dune and Dune series and science fiction. So if you've got any questions, Jean-Pierre, fire away. Brad saying back at Grimdark, exactly. Yeah, sorry, the Jodorowsky. I actually thought that the book that he produced was pretty good in the documentary, but the sense of what he was going to do to Frank Herbert's Dune, I thought was that. I thought he was going to basically strip it for ideas and then just do what he wanted. Malcolm McDowell. Oh, I had thoughts on this, guys. We're going to get to the Emperor again. I've been thinking. Hmm. But yes, the Grimdark says the Alan Smithy cut of the Lynch film added some scenes back, but the VFX visual effects weren't finished. That's yes. I thought the actual exposition of the sorry not yeah exposition of the Benny the schools the Butler and Jihad and the artwork with some of it's in the episodes. I quite enjoyed it, and there's little bits, little extra scenes, as it with Gurney playing a song and them all sitting around and stuff. But yeah, the Alan Smithy cut's not horrendous. I think it's I still think it would be nice if Lynch had been here. Go take this and do what you want with it and tidy it up. What's the one I watched? David Lynch short film there very recently where it's David Lynch himself. Maybe you know what I'm talking about, and he's kind of grilling a monkey. It's really good. Is it What About Jack or All About Jack or something? Maybe I can't remember what you call it at all. Keith says, as long as the Spice Orgy can be directed by Tinto Brass and be produced by Bob Guccione, both of Caligula fame. Prefer Ross Meyer myself, Keith. Caligula is that's what led to the Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, produced by Bob Guccione. Yeah. Grimdark. Brad Dourif remarked, Lynch ran out of money and went over budget where the visual effects got very cheap. Malcolm McDowell as the Emperor. He's a wee bit too old, but yeah, he would have been brilliant. My idea the other day, we were talking about who did we think about would make a good Emperor, and I've been thinking and racking my brains because I ended up applying who I thought might have been a good Emperor to Casimir Fenrig, and every time I kept thinking of somebody, I could put them in a different. So I thought of my choice, folks. If I could pick, we were talking about that the person should be young enough but able to act old, have a certain amount of grace yet gravitas, this kind of thing. So my pick for if who would play the Emperor is Dev Patel. I'd pick him. I think he'd make a great Emperor. And yeah, I don't know what you think. Most recently seen in The Green Knight. I think he's a good actor. I think he's very imposing, but he can do what what the qualities we were talking about of the role the other day. I think he might be a good choice. There you go. I wonder who you thought I was going to say, but Dev Patel, I think, really good. Really enjoyed him in the Green Knight recently. That's a cracking film. On with your comments, folks. Anybody else for Emperor in June? But yeah, Malcolm McDowell's very good. I tell you what, folks, my dog has farted quite badly in this room. It's noodles. What have you? Oh goodness, that's quite bad. Oh dear, oh dear. I've just been gassed by a very small dog, and she's way over. It's horrible in here, love. Do apologise, folks. How can such a bad smell come out of such a little thing? Oh dear, yeah. Evil noodles is what we call her. Sorry. Dear, it's harsh. Oh dear, and I've got a cold. I'm trying not to breathe in too much. Chaya says, still hoping Peter Jackson takes a turn at trying to properly turn Dune into a film. Whether this version turns out well or not. Did he suggest that he wanted to have a go at it? I didn't know that. I thought what he did with the Hobbit Chaya was appalling. And I was just talking about it the other night that I actually fell asleep in the third Hobbit film. More to do with, I think, the frame rate and stuff. And I don't think I'd ever fallen asleep in a film before. And it's just what it did to my eyes, rather sadly. So for me, Peter Jackson's claim to fame is he's the only director who ever put me to sleep in a cinema. And I think it was like quite actiony and stuff. But there you go. But it would, different directors I think could have brought different things to Dune. I said, oh, folks, I don't really know Danny Villeneuve very well, but somebody had suggested I watch Arrival, so I watched it last night. Excuse me. I thought it was quite good. And I can see the sort of look of certain things that he's done there, kind of in the larger kind of ships and stuff over in the Dune. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. Um, hmm. Yeah, and I thought, yeah, I thought it could have, yeah, I thought it could have been fleshed out a bit more, to be honest. But it wasn't too bad, and it's a different type of. As I said, we're, not always. I suppose science fiction always have to be about blowing stuff up. I suppose it was. I like language science fiction, and so yeah, it was very very good. Um, hmm. Could have done more with the language thing, but it's about film and pacing, I suppose. So, but I did enjoy it. I have to say, I did like the alien writing, very much. Hmm. Jodorowsky says himself that he wanted to rape June with love. Yeah, that's probably what he would have done. I think C's rape just wrecked it. I think. Um, I think he just saw ideas in it that fitted things in his imagination, And as we've had a discussion before about a couple of Jodorowsky's films that I've seen in the 90s. So we've all chatted about why and how I don't remember them, and that I've no intention of watching them again. I have to say, but the actual documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, I think, is very entertaining. That documentary itself. But yeah, very happy. If I think people would have Dune fans would have absolutely hated it. I think. Um, hmm. It's amazing what ideas you can come up with if you can think, oh, I can spend a lot of other people's money. But I don't know. Caligula's troubled production was one big clusterfuck, says Grimdark Elven Lore Master. It's more interesting than the film itself, reading about its disastrous production. I quite enjoyed the film. Caligula's an absolute nut. Anyway, but and it's Helen Mirren as well, isn't it? I didn't. Who's the director on that? I think did you say it was Tinto Brass? By Bob Guccione, both of Caligula failed. Bob Guccione, he's that producer, isn't it? Bob Guccione Jr. from the Guns N' Roses song, I believe. Excuse me. You're Sylvain supposed to be about? Is it Bob Guccione Jr.? Possibly, I think, or one of them. Maybe it's senior. But yeah, sometimes you get that. Remember, like there's these things that are a wee bit the making of films that are more interesting, or things that happen behind the scenes can be more interesting than the film. I think we are talking about Man of La Mancha, the failed Terry Gilliam film, but somebody was making a making of film on it. I think it was a student, and you end up with this quite interesting documentary of how a film can fall apart very quickly in 7 days. Prisoners and Sicario are also good. Oh, I have seen Sicario now. I wouldn't have included that one. I suppose forgot that was one of his. Yeah, I thought that was quite a good film. Bit brutal, but yeah, there you go. But I did, yeah, Karen, I did enjoy Arrival, I have to say. And kind of got it a wee bit, I suppose. Jodorowsky, Brad says Jodorowsky is a knob-in. I see most of his movies for shits and giggles. Not a fan of esoteric drama. Yeah, I think you'd take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah. Grimdark says Tinto Brass originally and then was fired by Bob Guccione, took over the film to insert his Penthouse magazine models for lesbian scenes. Yeah, there are that kind of thing, I suppose. You're so vain, each verse is about a different person. Thank you, Keith. It's one of those ones that was always a big mystery, isn't it? But I thought that is that Carly Sim. I didn't read it or something, but I understood. I thought that recently or not too long back, that she talked about who. I think it was one of a. It was a big. It was her secret, wasn't it? I think, but I think she did talk about it. Because I think, yeah, I think there was a number of candidates, but maybe you've read the thing. I must look it up. Actually, each verse is about a different person. Is he one of them though, Keith? Just curious. And again, I don't know really. Yeah, Bob Guccione Jr. was mentioned in a Guns N' Roses song. I think. Took Terry Gilliam over 30 years to get his Don Quixote film. Doc, have you seen Salute of the Jugger? Yes, it's got a different name, I think, in the States. That's Rutger Hauer and Jung Chen, isn't it? It's a future post-apocalyptic kind of sport game, I think. Oh, is one of the verses about Mick Jagger? Ah, yes, I have seen. Yeah, Brad, I have seen. Rutger Hauer did loads of films like that back then, and yeah, I quite liked it. Um, God, there's another one back then. It's there's a Patrick Swayze one. Is it Steel Dawn? I don't know if you know the one. I mean, and it's got a rather good wee small part for Brian James on it, who's called Dark. I think it's really they're those kind of straight to video films that are kind of quite good actually. Mick Jagger is Fade was yeah, that's right, and Jodorowsky's Dune. I remember, yeah, he had all sorts of people cast for it, Grimdark, didn't he? And who was to be his emperor, wasn't it? It was to be Orson Welles, wasn't it? I think. And he wanted to fly Orson over and bring it. The only way he could get Orson Welles to agree to do it was to fly as chef or something. Wasn't that right? Yeah, it's a very, if anybody hasn't seen it, that is that what it's called? Just Jodorowsky's Dune. It's a very interesting documentary. And yeah, I don't know. I still don't know quite what to make of it. It's about somebody who never makes a film about taking apart. It was the Salvador Dali. Ah, that's right. Who was who? What was what was Orson Welles to be then? Was he to be like a narrator or something? The Baron, really? Ah, at that time, yeah, Orson Welles would have made a great Baron, I think. I think he was a bit down on his luck. Did he end up doing sort of Transformer voices and stuff like that? I think at the time, not too sure. But there we go. Well, listen, folks, it's just gone after midnight. It's been a great chat tonight. We've got a few new people in, so thank you very much all for joining us. Tomorrow night we've got the final iterations of the final ecological changes of Arrakis, and that's kind of brings us to the end of and we'll have the conclusions of the ecology chapter, if you like, and what we've looked at. And Orson Welles was going to be the Baron. Keith saying he wouldn't need makeup, and Salvador Dali wanted 100,000 per minute for filming. Fair enough. I think it would have been just absolute. It's just when somebody gets I've got all these great ideas. Hey, everybody come and do it. And there's no kind of reality to it. I think in the end, I think it was just too daft to dream. And it's a bit like whenever you try to, if you want to achieve your goals, you should make them modest, and I think you'll get them. But it's a bizarre thing. But the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune is really good. So there we go. So 2 more of these streams to your screening. Right. Tomorrow night is the last one on the ecology section. And tomorrow's what night? Wednesday. So then the morning after that, lunchtime, I'm going to see the film. And then the last one will be, so we'll have the last episode, which is the recommendations and conclusions that are presented whenever studying this. And it's just to the end of it has the bibliography, and it just wraps it all up. And then I'll be popping online afterwards, as usual, to chat about the video, what you think of the work in general, folks. And we'll have a bit of a chat about the film, providing we've seen it, which we should have, and providing all hell doesn't break out in Belfast. And we've also talked about things that may impede us from watching this film, and we may have to get them out of our way. So who knows? It's going to be an adventure anyway. But we're going to the cinema to see Dune, and nobody should stop us, really. Is that right? Yeah. And we're kind of looking forward to it as a wee bit of a break as well from this. So I'm looking forward to it, folks, and I'll definitely have a wee natter with you about it. But we've got 2 more of these to go, but 1 more, and then I'll be seeing the film, and then the last one. And we don't mean to rub it in, Carol. So says Brad. Karen, rub it in. I don't do drugs, I am drugs. Salvador Dali. That's quite a good quote, isn't it? Says Grimdark. And Karen's getting his 4th screening on Saturday as well. Excellent, Karen. And Karen's rubbing it. Hopefully, you never know, Brad. Something might turn up, yeah. Just in Brad's last comment, Jodorowsky's Dune was never going to get made. It was an ego circle jerk. Absolutely. Oh dear, oh dear. Is that past the salt? Listen, folks, I'll say goodnight anyway because my bladder is bursting and I'm going to keep my throat for the last couple of days. But we'll see you tomorrow evening. Our episode will be on the final transformations of Arrakis and ultimately probably what is Herbert's ecological message and some of his conclusions there. And we'll see you afterwards for a bit more live chat. And cometh the film soon. So in the meantime, guys, look after yourselves no matter where you are. Take care of yourselves, and I'll say goodnight. And thanks again for watching. Bye-bye now. Thank you.